Now for the next two triggers, so for the boundary and then for the headland trigger, the fundamentals of the turn is built off of the boundary. So the way I record a boundary is I can check my run screens, but we see the boundary record's not here. So I'm going to go over to the toolbox, then I'm going to go over to layout, and then just like I added AccuTurn, I'm going to go ahead and add boundary record. So I'm going to find a run, let's find a run 5 here. I'm going to go down to boundary record. So then if I go over to run 5, you'll see here, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to, now we could use this while we're planting, harvesting. We could set it for the outside of my implement. We could set it for the center line of my vehicle. So it all depends on what operation you're doing at that time. So now we're going to record our boundaries. So we come up here, we see boundary record, recording edge center outer. So we're going to start. And then now we're recording our boundary. So if we go back to our run 3, our guidance screen, you'll see our boundary being recorded by the black line. So this is great if I'm planting my first round of headlands with my planter. I can use my outer edge of my planter as my recording boundary. Or if I'm just in a tractor, if I've got a small Maxim that's guidance ready equipped, I can map it out with a boundary as well from the center line of the vehicle or maybe a smaller implement. So after I've completed my boundary, I'm going to go ahead and go back to run 5 and stop my boundary record. And then to use the headland, which is the most recommended method, we're going to go ahead and place the headland user-defined window onto a run screen as well. So I do that by going to Toolbox, Layout, Run 5, and then I go to Headland. So now that I have Run 5 selected, I'm going to go to Manage, I'm going to click New Headland, and then I'm going to use the boundary that I just created to create a headland. So if I click Select here, so you'll see that I've got a couple different options. So I could do a single headland, I could do multiple headlands, and then you can move them up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and move B down a little bit. So you see here, you can just drag. So I'm going to move B1 now. And then I'm going to actually create a double. So it just mirrors it. So I'm going to accept that, and then we're going to drive it off of our headland. So now if we go back to run 3, so we have our trigger selected the headland. So after we've created the headland, in order for it to trigger for AccuTurn, we need to turn the headland on. So we click on, and then we can select inner or outer. What this is useful for is this is dictating what you're doing and where you want to drive section control. So if I want to plant the inner part of my field, I'm going to have inner selected, the outer part, I'm going to have outer selected, and what this is doing is this is commanding when should section control be on, when should it be off. So if we have inner selected like we do now, we're planting the inner part of our field, and when we get to the headland, it's going to turn section control off. For AccuTurn, now that we verify that our auto trigger turn is set to headland, go back to our guidance screen, and we click auto. Now it's going to drive our turn based off of the inner boundary and then the outer boundary here. So you'll see here, it displays our speed we need to be, how long till our turn starts, and you'll see it actually builds our turn out. So you can see that we're building a light bulb shaped turn. So to verify that, to ensure that we're coming in perfectly square, so it goes ahead and it executes our turn for us, lines us up perfectly square for the next pass in the field. For our final trigger, now what we're going to do is we're going to select our outer boundary, and then this is going to drive based on our outer boundary. So you'll see here that it's actually going to take us outside of our outer boundary and build the turn for that. So you can see here now on the screen that we're approaching the AccuTurn, and then it's going to take us around the turn. So as you can see, AFS AccuTurn has many benefits to your operation. This can be used on any AFS Pro 700, 372, NAV2, NAV3 machine, really providing a lot of functionality and increased performance for your operation.